got me saying, my. Man, that was so good. It got me pulling up Johnny Gill. Lord, that was so good. Is that your testimony today? How many of you know that God is Jehovah Jireh? Yes. Sometimes there are no words. You just have to say, my. That thing spoke to me today. That thing spoke to me today. Listen, we need to jump into our passage of scripture today. And I have a confession. I have a confession. We're supposed to be in this sermon series. There's a psalm for that. At the beginning of the summer, I thought, what a way to spend the summer journeying through the Psalms. And it's been wonderful so far. What we've discovered is that no matter where we are in life, no matter what we are facing, there's a psalm for that. Last week, I started a series. I started a sermon. I planned to preach a sermon, Psalm 23. A familiar passage of scripture, but as we began making our way through it, I realized that this text is so rich and so deep that last week I could not get beyond the first 3 verses. My plan for this series was to move through a different psalm each week. So last week, I couldn't get through the first 3 verses. I only got through the first 3 verses, and so I said we're going to come back and do a part 2. And what I said is that we would finish this psalm so that we can get on with the series. But y'all, I have a confession to make. I am falling in love, or should I say again, falling in love again with Psalm 23. And so, unfortunately, as much as I would love to get back to the series and get back to teaching and preaching on other Psalms, Psalm 23 just won't let me go. And I could have rushed through it, but no, I got to take my time with this. And so for the next 2 weeks, right, this is just going, let's just put there's a psalm for that over here. Maybe I'll get back to it in the fall, because for the rest of my time before I go on vacation, we just gonna sit with Psalm 23. That's what we gonna do. And this time is worse. I couldn't get past verse 4. I'm just preaching verse 4. Just preaching verse 4 today. So come on and stand to your feet. We'll just read the first 3 verses as a reminder of what we talked about last week, and verse 4, because 5, 6, I'm just going to have to come back to that, okay? The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in right paths for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. This is the word of God for the people of God. Will you remain standing while I pray? God, I come before you because the truth of the matter is, this moment is all about you. I didn't know what you were going to do and how you were going to move or what you were going to say. I still don't. So God, I just surrender. I surrender and I say, have your way. Yeah, I read some things and yeah, I put some things on this iPad, but the truth is I can't preach this without you. It's clear to me, oh God, that this psalm is bigger than this sermon. It's bigger than me. And so God, have your way. Speak to me, speak through me. And if I'm not getting it, speak for me. Touch this waiting congregation who press their way here because they want to know, what does God have to say? Speak. Your servants are listening. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. You may be seated. So I'm going to preach today a Psalm for the Living, Part 2, God in the Valley. A Psalm for the Living, Part 2, God in the Valley. I want to begin the message with a quick recap of last week's sermon. One, we have some visitors, we have some guests, and so I want to catch them up. And then two, sometimes y'all forget things in between Sundays. So I just want to remind you, okay? So Psalm 23 is the psalm that we recite at funerals and memorials. It's the psalm we read at bedsides and gravesides. But what I proposed last week and what I am still suggesting today is that this psalm is not just a psalm for the dying, it is a psalm for the living. Many of us can quote the 23rd Psalm by heart, the King James Version. Y'all were getting tripped up when I read that New Revised Version. Me too. I was getting tripped up too. But last week, I posed a question. We know the Psalm, but do we know the shepherd? And so thus began this Karen masterclass on shepherdology, where, Deborah, we began to break down what it really means when David says, the Lord is my shepherd. And I don't know about you, but because I know this psalm and because I've known it for a long time and I could quote it and I read it so much, I kind of came to this psalm thinking I knew everything I needed to know. And you all probably did too. When I said Psalm 23, I know this psalm. I know this psalm. But as we began to break this thing down, how many of you found that your minds were being blown? There are so many things about shepherd and sheep I just didn't understand. And it just made the text so much more clear. And so I think that we're going to do a little bit of that again today. So the first lesson we learned last week, when David calls the Lord his shepherd, he wasn't just calling God a caretaker. David was testifying that the Lord is a constant presence. What we learned last week, Beverly, is that a shepherd is not just someone who provides for sheep. A shepherd is someone who is always present with their sheep. Wherever you see sheep, the shepherd is right there. Isn't that the way God is with us? Wherever we go, God is right here. I wish I could stay there, but Willow, I can't. So next we looked at what the shepherd does. First, the shepherd makes us lie down in green pastures. And what we learned is that sheep are naturally anxious animals. They are restless, easily startled, always on edge. Rest doesn't come easily for sheep. So the shepherd has to make them lie down. However, what we talked about last week is that a shepherd doesn't physically force the sheep to lie down. Instead, the shepherd creates an environment where rest is possible. Sometimes, in order to give us the peace we're looking for, God doesn't physically force us to rest. Instead, God shifts and changes the atmosphere around. Oh, I feel like preaching again. I can't stay there. Go back and look at the tape. No, we don't have tapes no more. What we have? Go on Facebook and YouTube. I am a child of the 90s. We had tapes and CDs. So then we talked about how the shepherd leads the sheep beside still waters. See, sheep can't drink from fast-moving streams. Rushing water causes them to be anxious. So they'll stand next to what they need. They need water, but they will stand there and go thirsty because they cannot drink from rushing water. But thank God for the shepherd, because the shepherd knows that sheep cannot drink from rushing water. And so the shepherd leads them to still waters so they can get what they need. That's how God cares for us. God doesn't just give us what we need, but he gives it in a way that we can receive it. God doesn't just lead us, God understands us. God knows what we need, and rather have us standing beside what we need, God will lead us beside still waters. That's as far as we got last week, y'all. And so we're going to pick up where we left off. We're going to pick up at verse 4. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. Y'all, I thought that I was going to be able to get through this and then get to the table where the enemies are. But the verse just, it held me right here. It held me right here. I didn't realize that there was so much to say, Anita, about this fourth verse. But come on, let's get into it. So the New Revised Standard Version says, even though I walk through the darkest valley, but what we know is the King James Version, which says, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. Listen, this is probably one of the most quoted but least understood lines in all of Psalm 23. What is David saying in this verse? I shared with you last week that Psalm 23 is categorized as a psalm of trust or a psalm of confidence. In this verse, David makes a declaration of trust. He places his full confidence in a shepherd who isn't just with us in green pastures, but who is also with us through the darkest valley. David wants us to know that the shepherd's presence doesn't stop because the scenery changes. See, let me tell you the difference between people and God. People will leave you when the scenery changes. See, they're with you in green pastures. They're with you by still waters. But when the scenery changes in your life and you find yourself in the darkest valley, people will walk away. But in the text, David declares that God does not move just because the scenery has changed in our lives. The same God who makes us lie down in green pastures, the same God who leads us beside still waters, is the same God who walks with us through the darkest valley. This shepherd that David talks about in this passage, see, this shepherd doesn't just show up in peaceful moments. The shepherd is present during the painful moments too. When we think about sheep and shepherds, the image that often comes to mind is something like this. Media team. Not that one. Yes, that one. When we think about sheep and shepherds, this is the image that typically comes to mind. Green pastures, sheep grazing in a wide open field with the shepherd carefully keeping watch. That's a beautiful image. But here is what we don't always realize. Green pastures are only green, and they're only good for a season. The grass doesn't stay green forever. The grass doesn't last forever. The sheep will eventually eat it down to the root. And what was once green and nourishing loses its ability to give life. And here's the thing, y'all. Here's the thing. The sheep don't always know that the pasture has run dry. The sheep can't recognize that what was once feeding them can no longer nourish them. And if we left it up to the sheep, Anita, they would stay right where they are, grazing on dead grass, chewing on dry soil, and fighting each other over what's left. But thank God for the shepherd. Come here, let me teach you something. See, part of a shepherd's job is to protect the sheep from overgrazing. Overgrazing is what happens when sheep stay in the same place too long. A good shepherd knows that overgrazing can be detrimental to a sheep's survival. And even when the sheep don't move, the shepherd refuses to let them die in the place that used to feed them. Y'all don't hear me in here. Church, listen, let me bring this home. I don't know about you, but I'm so glad that the Lord is my shepherd, because the Lord protects us from overgrazing. He knows when it's time for us to move. He keeps us from staying too long in places that no longer feed us. And even when we don't move, because you know we're sheep, even when we don't move, even when we become comfortable and complacent, or we're just too tired to shift, I'm so glad that the shepherd refuses to let us die where we are. I know what it is. I know what it is. See, it's First Sunday, and we're Presbyterian pretty. We're Presbyterian handsome. So y'all ain't trying to get sweaty. I get it. I'm getting sweaty. I get it. But let me tell you something. This right here is a whole word. It's a whole word, because it says that the shepherd protects the sheep from themselves. The sheep have no idea that where they are cannot sustain them. They have no idea that if they don't move, they will die. But thank God for the shepherd, because the shepherd will move the sheep even when they don't want to be moved. Move the sheep because it's in the sheep's best interest. Move the sheep because that is what's good. Y'all don't hear me. Family, if you haven't figured this out yet, what David wants us to know is that we are the sheep. And I know you're like, Pastor, these sheep sound dumb. I mean, listen. I didn't write the psalm, David did, though. I'm not calling anybody dumb. I'm just saying, David said, take it up with him. But you know what? You may not be able to admit it, but I have to admit it. We're just like the sheep. See, if it were left up to us, Robin, we wouldn't move. We would stay in places that no longer serve us, that no longer give us life. We would stay right there, chewing up on dry soil, eating up grass that has gone brown. We would stay right there. But thank God for the shepherd. See, we have this tendency to stay in relationships that are draining us, jobs that are depleting us, routines that no longer grow us, friendships that keep us stuck. If it were left up to us, we would stay grazing in fields long after the grass was gone. Let me pause right there parenthetically. You know that phrase, the grass is greener on the other side? What you need to add is today. Right? The grass is greener on the other side today. Seasons change. Things shift. Okay? It's greener today. Okay, let me get back to what was I saying? Okay. We thank God for the shepherd. See, the shepherd is the one who sees what we cannot see. The shepherd is the one who knows what we refuse to admit. The one who says, you can't stay here, but there's greener grass someplace else. And even though, here's the thing I love about the shepherd, because even though the sheep don't want to move, the shepherd will push them, pull them. He'll even carry them. Some shepherds have a sheepdog, and he'll sick the dog on them, not to hurt them or to harm them, but to get them in line. The shepherd will do whatever the shepherd needs to do to move the sheep to a place where they can live again and love again and eat again and sustain again and be nourished again. That is what the shepherd will do. Sheep have to move. And because the shepherd must move the sheep, that journey often requires going through some valleys. Let me set this up for you. The sheep and the shepherd, they're in green pastures, and it's great for about a week or so, but then the shepherd recognizes that the sheep are starting to overgraze, and now they need to move. Sometimes because they need to move for their survival, for their growth. They have to move because they have to get what they need from a different place. Sometimes the shepherd would move them, and that journey toward moving to what they need requires them to go through the valley. Anybody here have ways? Sometimes ways gets us to move, and I want to take the parkway because that's the easiest and the fastest way, but sometimes Waze knows what's up ahead, knows that there was an accident on the parkway, and instead of going that way will redirect me, and now I'm taking this long way, driving down streets that are unfamiliar to me, but it's all necessary to get me to where I need to go. As much as I'm sure the shepherd would love this, they just can't stay on the hilltops. They can't always remain on higher ground. Sometimes the only way to get to what's next is to go down low. But here is what I don't want you to miss this morning, family. Even in the valley, the shepherd is shepherding them. See, these images, the problem with these images is that it only shows one version of shepherding. It only shows one aspect of what it means to be a shepherd, right? But it is multi-layered. Even in the valley, the shepherd is shepherding. Even in the valley, the shepherd is still leading. Let's talk a little bit about valleys, give you some context for the content. In biblical times, valleys were more than just low places in landscape. The Hebrews called valleys wadis. Say wadis. Wadis were dry riverbeds that ran between mountains or hills. During the rainy season, they would sometimes flood, but most of the time, they were rocky, steep, and narrow paths carved through the terrain. These wadis were the only routes from one grazing ground to another. So if the sheep were going to get to fresh pasture, if they were going to be nourished again, fed again, strengthened again, they had to go through the valley. But here's the challenge. These valleys were dark and dangerous. The steep cliffs on either side meant that sunlight couldn't reach the bottom, especially early in the morning or late in the day. So they're literally walking through the dark valley. Shadows, if you were ever wondering where did the shadow come from in the King James Version, shadows were everywhere. And they were so thick, you couldn't tell what was real and what wasn't. Predators like wolves and lions and wild dogs, they often hid in the rocks above, waiting to pounce. Flash floods could rush through without warning, washing everything and anything in its path. Valleys were dangerous. The terrain was uneven. The path was narrow. One wrong step and a sheep could slip, fall, or be attacked. And yet, the shepherd, knowing the danger, knowing what lies ahead, the shepherd still led them through the valley. Not around it, not above it, not away from it, but through the valley. Now let me just pause here, because you know I ask questions. I ask questions. And here's the question I have. And maybe it's your question too, so we're going to answer it together. Here's my question, Willow. We have already established that sheep are anxious creatures, right? We talked about this last week and the beginning of this week. They're skittish. They're easily startled. They are not built for dark, narrow, dangerous places. Not only that, but we see the shepherd at the beginning of this psalm going out of his way to ensure that sheep were comfortable, right? Making them lie down in green pastures, leading them beside still waters. And so the question that I have, knowing how sheep are, their personality, their tendencies, and knowing how they are so anxious and skittish, also, the shepherd knows how to make accommodations for them because we've seen it. Why would a shepherd ever lead sheep through a valley that is dark and dangerous where predators are ready to attack? Why would a shepherd take anxious, worried, skittish creatures through a dark and dangerous valley? Shepherds know the sheep like I know my children, which is why I'm not getting on a plane with Noah, Andre, and Nyla, because I know them. Pastor, you should take the kids to the Bahamas and can we drive there? I'm not taking Noah, Andre, and Nyla on a plane anywhere. If we can't drive, we're not coming. I know my children. The shepherd knows his sheep. Why would he take these skittish, anxious, easily startled creatures through a dark, dangerous valley? Ask this question. This is probably why it's taking me so long to get through this psalm, because I'm asking questions and the Lord's taking this time answering. Took some time, but then the Lord spoke and said, there is only one good reason why a shepherd would lead his sheep through a valley. I said, okay, what is it? Y'all want to hear what he said? All right, listen. The only good reason a shepherd would lead his sheep through a valley, through darkness, through danger, through the unknown, is because what's on the other side of the valley is better than what was left behind. I'm not even done yet. Check this out. A good shepherd would never take his sheep into a risky place without purpose. A good shepherd doesn't lead them into darkness without direction. If a shepherd is leading his sheep through a valley, it is because what lies ahead is worth the risk. It's worth the risk. Listen, I said some things before this. I'm going to say some things after this. But if you don't hear anything else, I need you to hear what I'm about to say right now. Come here. 4 words. It's worth the risk. It's worth the risk. It's worth the risk. That's it. What God has for you on the other side of this, what God has for you on the other side of the valley, I came as a witness today. It's worth the risk. It's worth the risk. I want to talk to somebody today who is literally standing at the edge of the valley, uncertain, reluctant, and afraid to take that next step. You're standing at the valley. You're looking inside. It's dark. It's dangerous. You can see the shadows looming, and you can hear the wolves growling, and you're standing at the valley, and you're saying, God, are you still with me? I can't believe that God is with me in this valley. Did I make a mistake? Did I do something wrong? I was just grazing on green pastures yesterday. How did the seasons in my life change so quickly? I was grazing, and now I'm standing looking into a valley. Hear me when I say this. I know what it feels like, but the valley is not off the path. The valley is the path. It's not off the path. It is the path. And not only that, but it's worth the risk. It's worth the risk. I know it's dark. I know the shadows are there. I know the predators are starting to circle. I know you don't feel safe. I know you feel uncertain. I know your footing is shaky. But hear me when I tell you, it's still worth the risk. It's worth the risk. Look. The shepherd will never lead us into a valley and not keep us. The shepherd will never lead us into a valley and not cover us. The shepherd will never lead us into a valley without bringing us through the valley. Here, let me tell you something. Come here real quick. Let me talk to you for just a second. I'm going to talk to you as Maria for a second. But hold on. I'm going to be pastor right after I say this. Okay. I've been through a couple of valleys in my day. A couple of valleys in my life, right? Both physical and metaphorical. But listen, the one thing I know about valleys is that I am sure because of the danger looming, because of the danger all around them, the shepherd has to stay closer to the sheep in the valley, more so than in green pastures. Why am I telling you this? Because somebody here prayed at the beginning of the year, God, turn some things around for me. God, I want to be closer to you. You prayed these prayers at the beginning of the year. God, I just want to have a deeper relationship with you. I want to feel closer to you. And then when God brought you to the valley, you started doing the moonwalk back. And God's like, didn't you pray and ask that I'd be closer to you? Let me tell you. When you get in that valley, I'm going to be right there. Come here, Sienna. All right, come here. Okay, you be God, just because I don't want anyone to think that I'm God, right? Here I am, timid about going into this valley. I done prayed way back there. God, I just want to be close to you. God, I just want to feel you all around me. God, I just want to have a deeper walk with you. And God leads me to this valley. And now I see the danger. I see the predators. I see the darkness, and I don't want to go in. But look at God. God has this way of wrapping you and staying close because the danger is all around. God has to stay close. God, look, when I want to hide, I get to hide under the shadow of God's arms. God is right there in the valley. God is closer to us when we're walking through the valley. My. Now you see why I can't get past verse 4. I hear the shepherd asking today, Deborah, will you trust me? I know that you trust me beside still waters. And I know that you trust me in the green pastures, but will you trust me in the valley? Will you trust me when the path is narrow, when the shadows fall, when fear rises, when the predators circle? Will you trust God in the valley? Because if you decide today that you're going to trust God in the valley, what's ahead is worth it. What's ahead is worth. What's waiting for you on the other side is worth every step in the. One more thing, and then I'm going to close. Look, every step, right? God counts it. Oh my God, y'all don't hear me. Look, we're walking through the valley every step. It's not just getting us closer to where we're going, but every step God counts. God uses to prepare us for where we're going. So walk, pick up that leg, and keep it moving because God counts every step in the valley. We're on the last part of this verse, right? So we know that the shepherd sometimes leads us through the valley. Here's what we also need to know. The shepherd does not enter the valley empty-handed. The shepherd doesn't enter the valley empty-handed. The next part of this verse says, thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. See, it's easy for us to just kind of skip past that and assume we know that the shepherd has his staff and he's doing what the shepherds do. But no, baby, let's break this thing down. Let's break it down. Right there, when David says, thy rod and thy staff, that is everything. Because when God leads us into the valley, God shows up with everything we need to survive. He doesn't show up empty-handed. He doesn't lead us into darkness without bringing what we need to make it through. He doesn't guide us into danger without bringing tools for our defense. When we are going through the valley, the shepherd has everything needed to keep us in the valley. That's good news. Little context. A shepherd in biblical times carried two essential tools, a rod and a staff. Now, they are not the same thing. Media ministry. There we go. Not the same thing. And these two things, a rod and a staff, they served two very different purposes. Let's start with the rod. The rod was a short, heavy club. Media, you can take it down because I know the people who are watching this can't see me. So, yeah, I'm trying to be mindful of those watching online. So the rod was a short, heavy club carved from a tree root or a sturdy branch, right? The rod was crafted to fit in the shepherd's hand like an extension of his arm. The rod was a weapon. The rod was used to defend the sheep from predators. When wolves, lions, snakes, even thieves, right? Because thieves wanted to come and steal sheep, right? When they would come, the shepherd had the rod. A skilled shepherd could throw that rod and with one hit could take out whatever or whoever threatened his sheep. Let me pause parenthetically because I don't think that it's accidental that David was able to knock Goliath out with just one shot. Where did he learn that skill? From being a shepherd, right? Look at that. I learned, listen, come on, y'all. Come on, y'all. This is why you come to Elmwood. Right? A skilled shepherd, all he had to throw that rod, and with one hit could take out whatever or whoever threatened his sheep. The rod, let's bring it to us, represents God's protection. The rod is a reminder that even in the valley, we are not defenseless. We have a shepherd who will fight for us. When predators come, we have a shepherd who will protect us. Thank God for the rod. Thank God that when weapons formed, we have a shepherd with a rod who can block whenever the weapons are formed. That's why they form, but they do not prosper. Because we have a shepherd that is... Thank God for the rod, right? The rod protects us. But then there's the staff, right? That long, slender stick with the crook at the end. The staff was not for fighting. The staff was for leading. See, let me tell you, the staff was used by the shepherd to guide the sheep when they wandered. The staff was used to rescue them whenever they would get stuck. The shepherd would go and he'll take that thing and he'll just guide them out. Right? The staff was used to draw them close when they drifted. The staff was used to reassure them with just one gentle tap. I'm still here. Tap, tap, I'm still with you. Tap, tap, you're not alone. That is what the staff represents. See, the rod represents God's protection. The staff represents God's correction. See, a good shepherd will protect you with one hand, but then get you in line with another. Now I see why pastors are called shepherds. Because you know I'm going to fight for you. If you told me today, Pastor, I need you to go beat somebody up, I will say, okay, where? Let's go, right? But with my staff, when you get out of line, I'm just going to bring you back in. I'm a tap, tap. I heard you were talking about, right? I'm just going to bring you in. I'm going to start walking around with a staff, LJ. Pastor, what you doing with that staff? Oh, I'm just correcting. Here's what I want you to get, and then we're gonna do communion. Here's what I want you to get. See, The reason the shepherd needs both the rod and the staff is because the threat, Karen, isn't always outside the flock. Sometimes the greatest danger to a sheep is the flock itself. See, sheep don't act in its own best interest. They stray, they fight, they wander, they drift. They will put themselves in positions that compromise their safety. But thank God for the shepherd who holds that staff. Because while the rod protects from what's outside, the staff corrects what's inside. The staff will pull them in when they've gone too far. The staff leads them when they're starting to drift. When the sheep starts to wander off the path, the staff will nudge them back to where they're supposed to be. When they're walking too close to the edge, the staff redirects their steps. When they're stuck in tight places, the staff reaches out and lifts them up. The rod may be used for striking, but the staff was used for steering. How many of you know that's good news? How many of you know that's good news? It's not just good news for the sheep. It's good news for us. Because the truth is, family, we wander too. We drift. We get curious about things we have no business entertaining. We find ourselves walking too close to the edge. But thank God for the shepherd. The shepherd will use his staff to guide us back to where we need to be. He will use his staff to pull us in, to keep us close. And here is what I don't want you to miss. David doesn't just say, "Thy staff comforts me." Because in the description, it would seem like the staff is the gentler of the two. I'll take the staff, but keep me away from the rod, right? But here's what I like about what David says. He doesn't say, "Thy staff comforts me." He says, "Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me." It's not either or, it's both. Because we need both in the valley. How many of you know we need both the rod and the staff in the valley? We need a God who will protect us from our enemies and also protect us from ourselves. True comfort doesn't just come from knowing that God is protecting us from what's out there. True comfort is knowing that God is also protecting us from ourselves. Because if we're honest, we are often our own greatest enemy. We don't need a wolf to wreck us. We will self-sabotage ourselves. Like sheep, we wander. We ignore the red flags. We try to talk our ways out of all of the obstacles and the challenges and the walls that we see. We chase things that look good but aren't good for us. We make decisions that threaten our peace and our purpose. Sometimes the danger isn't in the valley. Sometimes it's us in the valley. Sometimes the threat isn't a predator. Sometimes it's our own dysfunctional patterns of behavior. We are so quick to blame the enemy. Oh, the enemy's busy. The enemy sent that woman to me. Did the enemy text her too? Did the enemy say, "Come over, I know it's 1 o'clock, but you busy"? Did the enemy do that too? Right? We are so quick to say the enemy is busy at my job, or the enemy did this and the enemy did that. Listen, sometimes it's not the enemy, it's the inner me. ain't the enemy, it's you. But your bad decisions, your toxic behaviors that you refuse to go and get fixed. It's you not wanting to take a critical look at how you are coping with things in life. It ain't the enemy, it's you. But I'm so glad the Lord is my shepherd. Because the Lord doesn't just protect us from what is out there. The Lord protects us from what's in here. And I don't know about you, but I'm so glad that the shepherd has a rod and a staff. I need the Lord to take out my enemies, but I also need the Lord to correct what's in me. I need the Lord to minister to my heart. I need the Lord to protect me from myself. Yeah, I need him to take out those weapons, but I also need him to wrap his loving arms around me, to remind me that even though I'm in the valley, God is with me. I'm so glad the shepherd has a rod and a staff to bring me back in when I get too far. When I drift because I think that I made it, I'm so glad for that staff that pulls me back in. I'm so glad that we serve a God who loves us so much. He doesn't just let us walk away, but he uses his staff to bring us close. I'm so glad that when I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, there's a rod and a staff to protect me and keep me, to keep them away, but to hold me close. I'm so glad the Lord is my shepherd, because when I start to do things that will sabotage my own success, the Lord will take his staff and bring me close, whisper in my ear, you are my child. You're fearfully and wonderfully made. You can do all things through Christ who gives you strength. God will shepherd me in the valley. When I'm walking through darkness, he will shepherd me in the valley, protecting me from that and protecting me from me. I'm so glad that the Lord is my shepherd. Not just in green pastures, not just on the mountaintop, not just when I have everything I need, but even in the valley, the Lord is my shepherd. Even when I'm afraid, the Lord is my shepherd. Even when I'm unsure, the Lord is my shepherd. And his rod and his staff, they comfort me. I think we're going to be all right. I think we're going to be all right. Go ahead and touch yourself and say, I'm going to be all right. I'm going to be all right. I'm in the valley, but the Lord is my shepherd. I'm going to be all right. I'm in the valley of sickness, but the Lord is my shepherd. I'm going to be all right. I'm in a financial valley, but the Lord is my shepherd. I'm going to be all right. I'm struggling with some internal issues, but I'm going to be all right. I'm going to be all right. The Lord is my shepherd. His rod and his staff, they comfort me. I'm going to be all right. Go ahead, I'm going to be all right. Affirm it for yourself. I see those shadows. I see the predators. I know it's dark, but we're going to be all right. We're going to be all right. If the truth be told, Deborah, and I know some of y'all not going to want to hear this, but if the truth be told, Nikki, we are safer in the valley than we are in the mountain. Because the shepherd has to be more intentional about staying close in the valley. So we are safer in the valley than we are on the mountain. See, on the mountain, you can graze wherever you want. You can walk off wherever you want. And it's easier for a wolf. But when you're close to God in the valley, you're safer in the valley. Take me to the valley. It's okay, God. I'm all right being in the valley because I know that I'm safer in the valley with you right there beside me than I am on the mountaintop. And I felt God's protection on the mountaintop, but there's nothing like being in the valley and knowing that God's got you. Thy rod and thy staff. All right, let me bring this to her. Let me bring this to her. Let me bring this to her.